No, Buddhists aren't fools. There's no question that individuals exist in the simple, direct, literal sense. But what is significant for Buddhists and for biologists is not that individuals as such can't be identified, but rather that individuals don't exist in a fundamental, meaningful sense, that we are fundamentally meaningfully and genuinely connected to the rest of the world in such a way that to make a separation between us and the rest of the world is itself an artifice and profoundly misleading. Let me give you two metaphors that are, I think, useful to understand this. One would be, think about what does it mean to get a hold of one's self as a piece of fruit. We are not an apricot, for instance, where you cut away the outside and then you get to this hard kernel of independent selfhood, which I guess many people in Western religious traditions would identify as a soul.
Right.
For Buddhists and biologists, there is no hard core in there. It's more like an onion. You keep peeling away layers, but eventually you find that there is nothing there that is distinct from everything else. There is no hard, independent core. Another metaphor that I think is helpful is that of a whirlpool in a river or stream. Mm-hmm. You look at the whirlpool and it exists, just like you exist and I exist and those people watching this video exist and know that they do. On the other hand, where is the whirlpool? What is it? It doesn't have a separate, independent existence. It is literally a function of material energy and matter passing through a given structure of sorts that we identify as a whirlpool, and it's real. If you're in a canoe and it's a big whirlpool, you want to be aware of it and watch out for it. But it does not have an independent existence, and in that sense, we delude ourselves by thinking we have independent existences. And this is something that ecologists are very aware of: is that you can't really study, for instance, a single bison. If you want to understand the evolution of bisons or how they work or what they are, how they came to be, you have to look at the bison-prairie interaction and that of many different bisons and wolves and the entire ecosystem. And in that literal sense, ourselves are parts of an ecosystem and really only maximally meaningful when we recognize that. So again, anatman, not self, does not mean the simplistic notion that we simply don't exist and we're all deluded. It means that we don't exist in those rigid categories that much of Western thought has induced people to expect.
Right. So there's the lack of clear separation. Our sense of self that we have is deeply embedded in an ecosystem from which it emerges. It's not separate from that. You also write about how there's the intuitive sense, I think, sort of more of a psychological intuitive sense that there's a homunculus inside our brain, this CEO that's able to control the levers of things. That very strong intuitive sense that I think a lot of people have also in itself is not permanent, or it's not unchanging, and it's also dependent on a variety of factors for its arising.
Yeah, and it's misleading too. It's profoundly misleading. The image of somehow a little green dude inside our head that is the controller. It reminds me, there's a wonderful scene in the movie Men in Black in which there's a corpse comes into a morgue and they open up the head, and inside the corpse turned out to be not really a human but a robot, and there's a little Martian type green dude inside the head who's actually doing things. But of course then you'd have to ask, well, what's inside the green dude's head? And so the idea, again, it's not just ecology, for instance, in evolution, but neurobiology too speaks very directly to the fact that there is no hard single core of selfhood, that our neurons, our brains, are a function of an interconnected network.
Mm-hmm. Right.
By the way, you introduced a lovely joke, Josh, from the New Yorker cartoon. There's another joke I particularly like. It wasn't from the New Yorker, but the question arises: what did the Buddhist say to the hot dog vendor? And it is, "Make me one with everything." And of course, it's not quite a joke. I mean, we really are one with everything. But again, that can be it's almost too easy to say. And after having said that, it's all too easy to go on and ignore the wisdom behind that. But there is profound wisdom behind that.